I know that China is doing very poorly right now. I just saw some reports coming out, and I don't want that to happen to China. I like the president a lot, President Xi. I don't want it to happen. I was actually saddened to hear it, but they are getting absolutely hammered in China. And, they're sending boats, the biggest boats in the world, carrying cargo like nobody's ever seen. They're doing a big U-turn and going back because they don't want the goods because 145% tariff. But at a certain point, I hope we're going to make a deal with China. We're talking to China, but their factories are closing all over China.
That's President Trump yesterday highlighting the financial problems happening in China right now as a result of the U.S. tariffs. This after Beijing reportedly created an entire list of U.S.-made goods that are now going to be exempt from the 125% retaliatory tariffs in China. China's economy showing the first signs of crackage and damage from U.S. pressure. Export orders falling to the lowest number since the pandemic. Manufacturing down to the weakest level in more than a year. The Wall Street Journal reports that Chinese shipping containers sent to the United States now down by at least 1/3. Joining me now is Gatestone Institute senior fellow and the author of Plan Red, China's project to destroy America. Gordon Chang back with me right now. Gordon, good to see you. Let's talk first about the economy here in China. Going into these tariffs, China's economy was weakening. How would you assess things now, given what we're hearing now about the declines in manufacturing?
Well, I think the Chinese economy was contracting in Q1, but clearly in April it is. We saw the first indication yesterday. That was the official Purchasing Managers Index. It dropped from 50.5 to 49.0, a very large drop. In other words, it went from expansion to contraction. When the manufacturing sector is contracting, which is the best hope for China right now, you know the rest of the economy is in trouble. We also saw this from price data for February and March. The country's in a deflationary spiral. It's going to get much worse in April. I think there's no doubt that China right now, its economy is in distress.
You know, I mean, it's in distress, but doesn't that have an impact for the whole world? I mean, you're talking about the two largest economies, the United States seeing a contraction in the GDP yesterday, and now all of these weak signs in China. Does that ripple and make things even worse for the rest of the world?
I think it's an issue of confidence. You know, a lot of people say that China is the engine of global growth. And China has had a lot of growth in the past, but it's never been really an engine of global growth. Because to be an engine, you've got to buy the goods and services of other countries to create growth elsewhere. And China, with its criminal and predatory trade practices, has been taking growth from the rest of the world. So I'm not so sure that the practical effect of this is going to be as great as people think. And by the way, yes, the U.S. economy shrunk in Q1 0.3, according to the first read. But the point is, there were a lot of imports because companies were accelerating purchases in advance of the tariffs. That certainly undermined U.S. GDP. We're going to see the reversed effects starting this April. And so I think this is going to be a good story for the U.S. because we will get stronger as this trade war progresses.
Well, look, China's not taking this sitting down, Gordon. I mean, the Chinese Sovereign Wealth Fund, worth $1.3 trillion, reportedly is planning to reduce its holdings in U.S. private assets. It has already started seeking buyers for about $1 billion in private equity investments managed by American firms. Your reaction?
Yeah, well, I'm actually happy that China is reducing its presence in our tech sector, which is what happens when they sell out of private equity deals. Also, there are a lot of buyers for this, so I'm not concerned that we're going to see a drop in values. The China Investment Fund Corporation, it has always been churning its investments. So to a certain extent, this was politically motivated. To a certain extent, this was business motivated. But as we decouple, I think we're going to get to a better place for the United States because we'll always have the rich cash pools willing to invest in U.S. investments.
That's true. Todd Pyro, jump in here.
And let's flip this around, Gordon. Should we be doing the same to China? Should our government, albeit not yet a sovereign wealth fund, should we be doing the same, or we're selling as much of China as we can to, in your words, further this decoupling and sort of hurt them the way that they are attempting to hurt us?
Yeah, and it's not for hurting them. It is just to protect businesses, because we know that Xi Jinping has been on this campaign against foreign businesses, especially American ones, especially since the middle of 2023. So I think that it's important for us to make sure that our businesses are treated fairly. That's not possible in China. And so I think that we should be persuading and in some cases coercing American companies out of China for their own good and for the good of the United States.
And that's what they're doing to us as well. Look what they just did for Boeing, refusing to accept planes that were already ordered and on the docket to manufacture. Now China's saying, well, we're not going to accept those planes. So they're also telling the Koreans, South Korea, don't send any important materials needed for the military in the U.S. to the U.S. or you'll face sanctions.
Yeah, China is trying to impose a secondary boycott on the United States with regard to its actions in South Korea.
Yeah.
We'll see if that's effective. Remember, China tried this rare earth boycott in 2010 against Japan. It collapsed within a couple months because it just was not feasible. I think the same thing will happen again.
Well, what about this crazy suggestion? China is suggesting that COVID-19 virus originated in the United States. State media claims the virus was in America earlier than what the official timeline states. 2 weeks ago, the White House rebranded the covid.gov website, saying the origin leak was, in fact, from the Wuhan lab, something we all know. And now China's trying to change the story, Gordon.
Yeah, well, we join a long list of countries blamed by China for starting COVID-19. I think here what the United States needs to do is put an end to this charade and essentially say to China, this is what we know. We ought to release the intelligence about what we know about the origins of this disease, because this has become a propaganda war. We need to put some facts out there, and the U.S. has possession of those facts. It's just kept them close. I think that that's wrong now, because this is a matter of importance. And it's a matter of importance, Maria, because China has made it one with this renewed allegation.
Well, I got to tell you, I mean, Brad Wenstrup was running the, COVID subcommittee, and he did release lots of information. I'm wondering if anyone's listening. I mean, he did release a lot of information about these details, much of what we expected. But maybe, so maybe we need more clarity on that. Gordon, it's always a pleasure. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you, Maria.
Like, comment, and follow us on X @PatriotMediaGRP.